We have two lines. We have our legacy line and our artisan line. So our artisan blends are everything where what we're going to taste today would be an artisan blend, because the 5 distilleries are all smaller producers. Legacy is like MGP, Buffalo Trace, all the legacy brands. So we do two different things. Under the legacy, we will do single barrels. Under the artisan, we will not. We do not compete in market with the people that we buy from. We just don't believe it. We have Jamaican rum barrels, Oloroso sherry, Piat sherry, mead, more sherry, Armagnac, and cognac. So it's kind of like if you're in the kitchen, you're making a pasta sauce, and you're like, man, this needs some oregano. You go to your spice rack, you grab your oregano, and you add it, right? So when we're creating our blends and we feel like it's missing something, it needs depth, it needs some fruity texture, it needs some like dark fruits, whatever that is, we can come out here and it's probably in one of these barrels. Our biggest enemy is angel sherry. So Kentucky is roughly about 4% a year. We're 10 to 12.
Because of the heat.
Because of the heat and the humidity, that everything just leaves the barrel. So we were at a conference this past year in Texas, and we met these guys, Modern Cooperage. So this is something that started more for the wine industry and is seeing incredible application for the whiskey industry. So what these are 60-gallon stainless steel tanks, so that are in the shape of a barrel. What's interesting about these is these are engineered so that you do not have any angel share. They allow oxygen in, they do not allow alcohol out. And what we're doing with these is inside, I can actually open this one. So, you've heard of finishing staves, right? Kind of, you've done like a maker's mark. Yeah, exactly. So that's essentially what this is. In here, you guys can come around and take a peek. So and that's what this is for, it's to agitate it. So you get more surface area, more contact with wood on whiskey. The other big issue when you have a stave finished whiskey is typically the quality of the wood. We are very particular about the wood we use because the wood can make or break the finish of a whiskey. Like in this one right now, we have whiskey that has maple staves. So we want to add that maple flavor to the whiskey. So we're only putting whiskey in there that's done aging. Okay. So all we're getting is it's only going to be there for maybe a month to get on that maple flavor because the aging process is over. So that's the only thing we're using this. And then we also we're creating a vermouth, and that's what we're using these as well for. Because stainless steel is sanitary, and wine can turn bad very quickly. And also not allowing any oxygen prevents the oxidation process.
You can use the cups for water, you can use the cups for spitting. Something tells me this isn't a group that spits out a whole lot of whiskey, okay? So, take it down. You don't have to drink all of it, but you can. Also in front of each of you, there's a dropper bottle of water. Everything that's in front of you is right at 100 proof. Inventory switches yearly, so that's this year's inventory. We flip it out. So we generally run an inventory of about 70, 75 barrels back there. Is on this QR code landing page. And you can click on it, it'll give you the recipe. You click on the recipe, it'll take you to those distilleries' websites. So we encourage people checking out small regional producers, right? That's why we really started this whole company. Michael and I discovered about 7 years ago that there were so many interesting regional distilleries that were just starting to hit 5, 6, 7 years. Quint is Latin for 5, okay? And essium, or the essence of, so the fifth element, the fifth essence is what we were looking at. We've never put out a bourbon that has 5 whiskeys in it. Usually we stick to 3 to 4. So him and I were struggling with this blend. As you'll see, we'll get through the whiskeys individually on their own. But we were struggling with it for about 2 months trying to come up with something. And then we just added a couple drops of the last bourbon, that MB Roland from Pembroke, Kentucky. We added just a few drops of that to our tasting glass and it popped. And that was it. And so then we went back to the lab. We did about 25 more sample runs of that. Let those marinate for about 10 days to 2 weeks. And then we tested it and we selected Quintessium. We took that up to a panel of people that we respect, the palates, just so we're not crazy, right? Like, is this good? Is this not good? Like, you tell us. And that's what we picked, yeah. So that's the mash bill that was just for Blue Note. It had some excess barrels, and that's what we acquired. So this is not Green River's mash bill that you see out in rotation. This is something that we fell in love with 7 years ago. And we got the opportunity to acquire that for this particular project. So this makes up just over 50%. It's like 50.26% of the entire blend is this 7-year-old Green River out of Owensboro, Kentucky. So we've got 7-year-old Frey Ranch that's going to be the backbone that we add spines onto. The reason why we do it that way is we were taught to blend whiskey from a gentleman named John Glazer, who founded a company called Compass Box out of London. So McKinsey Bourbon is distilled, all the grain is sourced from about 3 miles, 4 miles around the distillery. It's distilled, milled, mashed, and aged all on the shores of Seneca Lake. So up in upstate New York, I've never been. We're really trying to plan a trip up there next year. But it's one of the most beautiful places in the world is the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York in the summertime. It's absolutely gorgeous. So this distillery sits on a cliff that overlooks the largest lake of the Finger Lakes. And this is in almost every single one of our blends. 8-year-old Envy Roland that went into this blend here. Envy Roland is like, if Jim Beam was pot still, that's kind of how I describe it. Jim Beam was pot still, that's essentially how I describe it. It is oily, and it's got this like caramel peanut brittle dark chocolate thing going on with it. Envy Roland's some interesting stuff. All right, so these are Envy Roland was the first farm to glass distillery in Kentucky since Prohibition. Okay, so that's how everybody used to do it. If you were a farmer, you were also a whiskey maker because you had excess grain. So you had 2 options: turn it into whiskey or put it in a silo and pray to God fungus and rats don't get to it over the winter. That's it. That's what you had. That's all you had to do.
Because when you start blending mash bills, it doesn't come out always the way you think it is. So that's why it sometimes takes a while, and why we like to have so much variety in what we're blending. Because you might try a whiskey, you're like, I'm not really a fan of that. But then you put it in a blend, and it freaking sings. That's what's kind of fun about blending, and also the hard thing about blending is things don't always come out the way they think they will. So you have to try every different option.